something's creeping, it's right outside. So come on in, and don't be shy. We've got ghosts and UFOs. Brace yourself, get ready for the show. Don't be afraid of the dark. The fun's about to start. Nightmares or tales will inspire. Oh, tonight at the Scaredy Campfire. Have you heard tell of a demon next door? Or maybe a cryptid on the lake shore? There's nothing too strange for us here. So if you're ready, stamp out your fear. Don't be afraid of the dark. The fun's about to start. Nightmares or tales will inspire. Tonight at the Scaredy Campfire. Whoa, whoa.
Welcome back, campers, to episode 19 of the Scaredy Campfires. Tonight's stories rise from the silence, soft at first, like whispers you almost dismiss, then louder, heavier, impossible to ignore. These are the moments that slip past reason, seeping into memory, leaving only unease in their wake. The fire burns steady, but the dark presses closer. Listen carefully. Not every haunting begins with whispers or shadows. Sometimes it starts in the most ordinary places. A quiet apartment complex, a child's errand to fetch a movie, a pair of headlights in the dark. For Reddit user u/Dutana Sunday, what began as an innocent trip to the parking lot became a memory carved in fear, one that even now refuses to let go. Because on that night, something was watching, and the silence of the world itself seemed to break. Notes before you read. This is my true personal story, and I have only told a few people because most do not believe me. This has been weighing on me for over a decade, and I need you guys' thoughts. I wrote this entire post myself, but I used AI to hopefully clarify it a little bit so that it is less confusing. Specifically, the explanation of what our street looked like. Thought it would be wrong if I didn't disclose that. I am honestly super nervous to share this story. Here goes nothing. I, 23 female, was about 8 or 9 years old when this happened. My mom and I lived in a third-floor apartment while she was in nursing school. One of our friends from school, whom I'll call Mary, had a daughter around my age, maybe a year or two older. I'll call her Betsy. One night, my mom and Mary were studying and hanging out in our apartment while Betsy and I tried to find a movie to watch since we had exhausted all our toys. It was around 9 p.m. and I didn't have anything at home that we wanted to watch. Mary, however, had a box of DVDs in her car's trunk. Betsy and I asked if we could go down to the parking lot to look for Despicable Me. Since our apartment balcony faced the parking lot, our moms said yes, reminding us that they'd keep the balcony door open and check on us while we were outside. For context, this is important. Our apartment complex had 10 or more buildings, and we were in one of the buildings at the very back of the complex. The street our building was on had 2 lanes on either side of a long, narrow median that stretched the whole street. This median was large enough to hold storage units, small garage-like structures that residents could rent. On one side of the median, closer to our apartment building, there was a single-lane street for driving. On the other side, there was another driving lane, plus a row of parking spaces lining the street. This is really hard to describe, but I can provide a picture in the comments if requested. If you followed the street in one direction, it would take you past the storage units and eventually curve towards the dumpsters. From there, the road would continue toward the front of the complex. But if you went the other way, it led to another building in the complex and a much larger parking lot, which also had a road leading into the rest of the complex and the entrance. That night there were about 40 cars scattered throughout this area, some in the designated parking spaces and some along the street. Betsy and I went down to Mary's car, which was parked in a spot across the median, but directly in front of our apartment. Her trunk was packed with clothes, boxes, and other random items, so we had to take a lot of stuff out to find the DVDs. As we were reaching and searching, we noticed an old powder blue pickup truck driving toward us from the direction of the dumpsters. It stopped about 100 feet away, turned on its brights, and just sat there. I've always been an anxious person since my mom had drilled stranger danger into my head from a young age. I told Betsy that we should leave, but she brushed it off, saying the driver was probably just being careful not to hit us since it was dark outside. The truck flashed its brights once or twice before finally driving past us, but instead of continuing down the street or leaving the complex, it made a U-turn around the median and went back the way it came. That felt weird, but we were too focused on finding our DVD to think much of it. A few minutes later, we were still looking for the movie. We had resorted to taking everything out of the trunk and putting it on the ground so we could see inside the trunk more clearly. Then the truck came back. This time it stopped closer, flashed its brights again, and just sat there. A horrible sinking feeling settled in my stomach. The truck flashed its brights and did another U-turn after it slowly drove by us. Again, Betsy insisted it was nothing, but I told her that if the truck came back once more, I was going upstairs, DVD or not. She laughed at me but agreed. We kept looking, and sure enough, the truck returned and parked even closer. The driver revved the engine multiple times, then inched toward us, flashing the light repeatedly. Pure terror shot through me, and Betsy finally realized something was very wrong. We started shoving everything back into the trunk as fast as we could. The truck kept creeping closer, stopping, revving, flashing its lights. Over and over. We were in tears, terrified. Then every single car in the parking lot, at least 40 of them, turned on their hazard lights, and their alarms started blaring. The entire parking lot lit up with flashing lights. The noise was deafening. I have never heard anything that loud in my life. The moment we realized what was happening, Betsy and I ran. We didn't care about the mess anymore. We just sprinted back to the apartment, screaming. The truck sped off, leaving the complex without going back in the direction it had come from. We ran up the 3 flights of stairs. I could still hear the alarms. We were crying, panicked, and pounding on the apartment door the second we got there. When my mom opened it, she and Mary looked completely confused. I turned towards the balcony. The door was still open. They should have seen and heard everything, but when we ran inside and tried to show them, the parking lot was silent. No alarms, no hazards flashing, just the mess we'd left behind. Our moms asked why we had left everything on the ground and told us we had to go pick it up. When we tried to explain what had happened, they didn't believe us. They laughed it off and told us to calm down before going back downstairs. I'm 23 now, and I think about that night all the time. I still have nightmares about that truck at least once a month. Betsy and I lost touch after my mom finished school, but every once in a while I texted her to ask if she remembers, kind of to reassure myself that I didn't make it up in my head. She always remembers, and she has dreams too. The only person who ever truly believed me, other than Betsy, was my dad. When I told him the story a few days later, he said I looked more terrified than he'd ever seen me. He thinks it could have been a power surge, but didn't know for sure because it was all so bizarre. I have no idea what happened that night. I don't know if it was divine intervention, something supernatural, or just an incredibly close call with a dangerous person, but I think about it every single day. Years have passed, but you/Dutana Sunday still dreams of the pale blue truck circling, waiting, daring them to look away. And always the question lingers: who or what set every car ablaze with light and sound before vanishing into nothing? Was it protection, a warning, or something darker pulling the strings from the shadows? No one else remembers. No one else heard it. And that's what makes it all the more haunting. The sense that sometimes the night chooses its witnesses carefully and never tells them why. It's easy to dismiss strange noises when you're young. A creak in the floorboards, a whisper from down the hall, a voice calling your name. But for Reddit user u/Chakra Yogi and their sister, an ordinary weekend turned uncanny when a familiar sound arrived at the wrong time. In a locked house with no car in the driveway, their father's voice still called up from the empty floor below. Many years ago, me and my sister, aged 9 or 10, were playing video games as the parents went grocery shopping. This was typical on a weekend. We'd just gotten a new game and was so into it. It was a nice sunny day and mid-afternoon. As usual, I hear "girls" from the downstairs, and the 10,000th time we'd have heard it, each time we're upstairs and Dad would call us after grocery shopping to come help with the groceries. It was such a part of our lives, and we were so involved in that game. We said nothing to each other and continued playing, waiting for the second, more annoying "girls," which we'd always then stop and go help. Not on this day. On this day, the second "girls" would not occur even after 3, 5, 10 minutes. I'm high conscientiousness and personality trait, discovered as an adult, and so had to pause the game at some point to look out the kitchen window, also upstairs, to see why we weren't being called again. My sister carried on in the game. The car was not in the driveway. I was a kid, and so, like a kid, I tell my sister, "The car's not in the driveway." We're Irish twins, and so I knew she heard it, but because it was so strange, I asked, to make sure, if she'd heard it. "Yes," she said. She heard it. She had to jump up from the game to look out the window to see the car not there. Also, we both ran downstairs. The door was still locked. They would lock it before leaving. We have much conversation over the weirdness of it. Went back upstairs, probably looked out the window again, continued playing our game. As for me, I waited to hear it again. Unsure how much time from then had passed, 30 minutes, an hour, but did eventually hear it again. Same exact tone, inflection, and his voice. "Girls," and we both immediately jumped up, checked the kitchen window, and the car was there. They were home. We ran downstairs to help with the groceries, excitedly telling our parents what had happened. To this day, u/Chakra Yogi remembers that moment, the unmistakable voice, the empty driveway, the locked door. Was it a slip in time, an echo of the future, or something else entirely, mimicking the most familiar sound in their world? The call came once, then again, and left behind only a question that still hangs in the air like a voice with no body. Who was really calling them? That ends episode 19, campers. Some questions remain unanswered, not because we don't know the truth, but because the truth refuses to be spoken. Until we gather again, keep the lantern lit, guard your steps, and trust nothing that greets you in the dark.
As the night gets longer and the darkness The eerie silence broken only by whispering wind. Come gather round the fire, the flickering flames, and hear the tales of the spooky and the strange. A chill up your back, a shiver up your spine. You'll be haunted by the things that you find. Legends will unfold and stories will be told at the Scaredy Campfire, for only